Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Scott Silverman, co-founder of Commerce Next. We're a community event series and conference for marketers at retail and DTC brands. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to help our audience understand what AI hears that customers don't say, and more importantly, how to act on these silent signals that customers are giving us. As always, we'll be taking your questions. Feel free to load them up during the presentations. We'll be reminding you on how to do that. For all of you joining us today, thank you very much for tuning in or listening to the replay. I want to start with a few very important thank yous. First, I want to thank our speakers today. We have Julie Evans, VP and CMO at Omaha Steaks, Janie Yamamoto Johnson, who's Senior Director of E-commerce at Forever 21, Michael Challinger, CEO at Houzer, and Jason Seba, CMO at Session AI. And a very special thank you to Session AI for sponsoring today's webinar. It's been a pleasure working with Jason and Katerina and the rest of the team. We could not bring these webinars and all the insights from them without the support of our sponsors. And I also want to thank my fellow colleagues at Commerce Next, Maeve, Robert, Jill, Veronica Allen, who are off screen, who are all helping make this webinar a success as well. And again, thank you all for joining and being part of our audience today. So for today's agenda, after letting you know a little bit about what's coming up and some quick housekeeping info, we're going to have Jason give a presentation on silent signals, how AI hears what customers don't say. And then we'll have our few polling questions, and then we'll have our panel discussion with Omaha Steaks, Forever 21, Houzer's, and Jason as well. So coming up in less than 3 weeks, we're very excited about Commerce Next Growth Show in New York City. It's June 11th to the 13th. There's going to be 2,500 attendees, 150 speakers. Among the more than 60 sessions that's especially relevant to this audience, we'll be going deep on AI at the Growth Show on a number of sessions on areas like product discovery, loyalty, on-site personalization, and more. Lots of great information about how AI is making these different areas in your business opportunities for those to be better. And we've entered a registration link in the chat, or you can go to commercenext.com if you'd like to learn more and hopefully register. So as usual, I want to remind everyone about our YouTube channel. All of our past webinars and summit sessions, our conversations with Commerce Next interviews, those are all there. It's pretty much any topic you can think of, you can search through. And then after the summit, there'll be even more and fresher content. So make sure you take advantage of that resource available to all of you. Couple housekeeping notes. Don't worry about missing anything. We're recording the webinar and we'll make it available as a replay tomorrow. And I want to, before we get started, show you a couple things that are on your screen to help you make sure you can take advantage of the webinar as much as possible. So the main panel for all the interactivity is on the upper right, and you'll see there's chat, Q&A, polls, and handouts. The chat, which is highlighted here, is where you can tell us where you're calling. You can tell us where you're calling in from. You can give the speaker high fives. You can interact with the audience. The Q&A, this is if you have any questions for the panelists or during the course of the conversation, use that Q&A tab. And that's important to use that for the questions instead of if you just want to offer a comment, do that in the chat. And then we have an upvoting feature. So if there's a question you think is really interesting, you can upvote that. That'll prioritize it for us so we know to make sure to ask that during the conversation. And then later in the webinar, we'll be having our polls, and these are live questions to get a sense of what's going on with the audience and how you're feeling about different topics. And those will pop up, and they're pretty easy to use. And then finally, the handouts. You can download Jason's presentation And there's a couple other presentations or handouts from Session AI on converting anonymous shoppers that I encourage you to download and take a look at. And if you're watching the replay, thank you. You can find the handouts in the bottom of your player. So with that, I'm excited to bring Jason onto the screen. Again, Jason did a great presentation a couple of months ago for our audience and our community. He is no stranger to helping retailers make better marketing and excel in e-commerce. His background includes running marketing at Bloomreach and mParticle. And we're excited to have Jason share his thoughts with you today. Welcome, Jason. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Scott. Really appreciate it. Happy to be here and happy to talk AI with all of you. It's an exciting time in AI. We're here in the Bay Area, and specifically in Mountain View, and actually over the hill in Half Moon Bay today. And I would say we're right at the heart of something special that's happening in AI. And so I've been lucky enough to kind of sit at the center of some of that. Like Scott mentioned, why should you even listen to me at all about AI? I had the opportunity to be at Bloomreach for 5 years as we grew in the early years, and then had the opportunity to run marketing at Eightfold AI, which is a very interesting AI company that's using signals for HR and for helping people with the best, the right career for anyone in the world there too. So I'm really excited to be here and talk to you about what's going on. I'm going to start with a little story about what's happened, a little AI story that happened to be the last couple of weeks. This is a pretty sweet 1982 Panasonic boombox that I found online, and went to go buy it, and it didn't work. It just had a big electric buzz right when I turned it on, and was like kind of disappointed. And then opened up Perplexity. If you don't know it, it's a search engine that really is competing with Google over time. And it taught me how to fix it. And so a trip to the store to get contact cleaner, taking it apart, and I ended up with a sweet old boombox where I could listen to Japanese hip hop mixtapes. So this is to say, everything's changing, right? So our careers are changing, how we learn is changing, and how we acquire customers and how we market to them and how we ultimately convert shoppers is also changing. And so this is one piece of the puzzle, but we'll get into how kind of product discovery and product purchase is changing with AI. And we'll walk through over the next few minutes. We're going to talk about some of the things that are going on broadly in AI, then how AI is changing in e-commerce and how it's starting to apply, and then some about what we're doing at Session AI to kind of bring reality to the e-commerce market with AI to start. All right, so let's just jump in with what's going on in the world. I think one of the most interesting things here is the training of these large language models. I think the thing to take away here is the models are getting better by throwing more and more compute at them. And so you look at the cost just in compute to build some of these more recent models, ChatGPT, GPT-4, Gemini, and we're talking over $100 million just to train the model. And the newer models are hitting $200 million. And the real kind of race that's going on right now is between OpenAI, Google, and others to create essentially very large supercomputers that will create these kind of foundational models that are being applied to so many startups and so many companies. And like I said, what's interesting is that the models are still performing better as they get bigger. I think there was an idea that they would kind of top out, but that, if you think about it, it's almost like Moore's law on the tech side, where more and more compute is changing that. There's a great YouTube video I can send people if they want to reach out, talking about kind of the Stargate supercomputer that's coming that people are working toward. So that's one piece of the puzzle. Another piece of the puzzle is kind of reinforcement learning, right? So people, how you actually train these very large models. One of the things, this was a tweet that actually ended up getting deleted from an OpenAI researcher, and it was talking about you don't get superhuman performance by doing imitation learning on human data. So part of this is these models are actually being trained back on themselves. And so you use the model to ask it questions and then look to see if the answers are correct and then train on itself. It's just a concept. As you're thinking about how these large models run, it's not just copying what humans have done, but it's actually getting better and better. And so it's just a consideration as we think about how this is going to change, our lives and our careers. All right, and just to put this into perspective too, Claude has kind of extended its lead in kind of the more academic tests on the AI side, but ChatGPT 4.0, which just came out, benchmarks are still coming for some of those, and may outpace. If people saw the demo for ChatGPT 4.0, being able to use video and images as prompts, and then even just screen sharing, it's really cool. And so we just wanted to kind of set the stage on what's happening across the market. The other piece here is just how good these models are getting, right? So we're just getting to the point of kind of human performance on predictive reasoning. You can see on the far right, but it's already passed us, right, in comprehension on reading, image recognition. And so part of this is, how does this affect us? How does this affect us in our careers, and how does it affect us just personally in life? And so this is from Stanford. There's an interesting poll that they did kind of end of last year that was talking about, how do you think AI will affect not only your current job, will it affect it or replace it? I thought what was really interesting here is that 36% of people actually thought AI would replace their job. And this is last year in a poll, and it's changing even faster and coming even faster. So it's not doom and gloom. I think there's a lot that it can actually bring to the table. This is actually got my hands on a Rabbit R1, and so this is one of the AI devices that came out at CES this year. They sold 10,000 of them the first day, 10,000 the second day, and 100,000 over a couple weeks, which is just amazing. The promise of what it's going to be is still being realized, I would say, but the device is essentially a AI in a box that will take action for you. And so I just wanted to use that as a bit of an analogy of how the world will go in purchasing. So take, for example, these are sunglasses that were cool last year. Let's say I go out to the market and say, hey, I want to buy these sunglasses. It used to be that I would go on Google, I would go directly to a retailer site and search for that. I think where things are going is it's going to look really, really different. And so let's go through what that looks like. So to start, today product discovery is through search engines. Tomorrow it goes through kind of AI chat systems, something like a ChatGPT. But then after that, really it's about agents, finding products and recommending them to us proactively. And so if you go back to the boombox, they know I want Japanese hip hop mixtapes, and they're going to start recommending that to me on Discogs or on eBay. I'm surfacing things that would be very unique to me. And then purchasing, right now it's happening, a lot of product purchases are actually, the search is actually starting on retailer sites. In the future, I really do think it'll be, you'll generically ask devices like a Rabbit or like ChatGPT on your phone to take action for you. And then in the future after that, it'll be agents that will just act on your behalf. Almost like one of the examples is, I never want to think about soap again. So, the type of soap I like, I'll let you know when there's too much. I'll let you know when there's too little, but just take care of that for me at the best price and make sure it gets here to me. And so as we think about actually on the e-commerce side, as we think about actually acquiring customers, it's about how do we actually arm ourselves when there's a robot on the other side versus a human too. It's definitely something to be thinking about. All right, I want to just highlight some quick AI use cases that are interesting. Walmart is using Gen AI to bundle kind of products based on category, like based on Gen AI themes. So a good example would be like a Barbie themed birthday party, and they're surfacing those to customers. Verizon is using in-session marketing to understand, influenceable visitors and then nudging them in real time with incentives or the right next action. And then H&M is using smart mirrors in their fitting rooms to offer personalized recommendations. And so there's a lot more to come in this area, but I just wanted to highlight some of the people who are doing interesting things. All right, this is maybe the kind of dust stat of the whole presentation, but 97% of e-commerce orgs are considering the use of AI, but I think even more interesting is nearly 50% of them are already experimenting. This comes from Salesforce research earlier this year. All right, let's look at where AI is popping up. So these are the kind of most common applications to start. And so product recs is a really common one. Sales and demand forecasting. I think there's things like fraud detection and prevention on the right. Companies like Signified. In-session marketing, where you're looking at signals and responding to people in real time. Inventory management, chatbots, and virtual assistants. These are all the areas where AI is just starting to hit. And this is showing actually adoption and the impact that people are making. You can see here that it's already hitting customer experience first. Product discovery, personalization is lagging a little bit behind, but not a lot. And then on the next side, there's just the challenges with adoption. So what are people concerned about? It's security and trust. The strategy is still continues to be an issue. And what's interesting is that deprioritization against other initiatives is dropping. So people are really adopting this. All right, so let's get in quickly and let's talk about what we're doing at Session AI and how this is becoming real AI is becoming real for e-commerce. And one of the big issues that we're seeing is that the world is increasingly anonymous, right? So Google, Apple, and Meta, they're all limiting customer data. Regulations are getting more restrictive. People are just choosing to not reveal themselves, and that's making conversions harder and harder. And really, there's an untapped opportunity in the anonymous, right? So one of the things is there's so many projects around known users, right? CDP projects, CRM, personalization. It's all about, can we know you more? Can we connect with the known people? Can we match people? Even to get that rate up a little bit more. But there's a lot to be done around these anonymous visitors. And for some companies, it's as high as 90%. Some people it's 80. It can be as low as like 50 or 60%, but there's still a huge number of people that you just don't know in real time. And so what we're doing is working on really behavioral AI that works in real time to unlock value for anonymous customers. So let me talk to you a little bit about what that looks like. And so we're looking at the clickstream and understanding what people are doing in real time so that you can actually take an action before they leave. There's a lot, there's so much investment in retargeting and going kind of chasing people around the web or then emailing after the fact to try to get them to come back. But this idea of actually being able to take an action before someone walks away, that is what Session AI is focused on. And it's being done actually with no customer data at all. And so one of the things that we're doing, one use case specifically, is to predict the likelihood to purchase. So we can understand just based on anonymous behavior, whether someone will buy, whether they won't buy, or if they're on the fence. And so this is the ability to predict and take a different action. And so one of the things that people are doing is repurposing incentives for the right people as opposed to everyone. And so I think all of us die a little inside when we run another site-wide promo. And what this is able to do is limit the promotions to people who actually need it and need the nudge in real time. And so there's nothing like it. This is a really unique technology at this point. It's one of the reasons I joined Session AI. It's because I saw just something that really wasn't being optimized or exploited, right? And so there's been so much work around personalization for the last 20 years. And a lot of us have been focused in that area. And there's just not the same type of gains that you can get from something that's totally new. And so this is what we've been focused on here. Just to show the impact, this is of one of our customers. And so this is specifically around the promotions kind of use. And they were spending $105 million a year on promotions. And they're highly promotional. And they were able to, you can see that $83 million of their promotions were actually going to people who are already going to buy. And so if you could actually reveal based on behavior what people are doing, you can change that a lot. And what we were able to do is actually reduce their promo spend 35% or $40 million impact in the first year. And so this is a journey that companies are interested in going on, and we're looking to help them in that transformation. And so would love to talk to folks and connect with them if they're ready to do that in their organization or learn more. We did another webinar with Commerce6, which was awesome. So I'd encourage you to go back to it if you missed it. But we had Jenna Postner, Laban Proster from Solo Brands, and she talked a lot about not only overall AI, but there was a really interesting discussion around how to get this done in the C-suite. And so one of the things that she talked about was actually taking AI and demystifying it. I think there's still some challenges around what AI is. And one of the things that she talked about was actually bringing up the fact that people are already using AI and they're already using it across a lot of different technologies. And that helped people in the C-suite get more comfortable with those changes and to kind of take the step to bring value there. Also, Mike from Spark Brands talked about really the impact that it can make on driving down cost. And so he was talking about how at the board, even at the board level, that is the conversation that resonates right now, especially as you're under additional pressure. So I encourage you to go back and check it out. I think the big piece here too, and hopefully this, as we get into the conversation, you'll see this, but I think people really need to have a story for how they're using AI this year, and would love to help in that process. And if anything, you walk away from this with some tidbits on what's going on in AI and how it's becoming real in e-commerce. So thank you so much for just being with us, and look forward to the rest of the conversation.
All right, and thank you, Jason. Another great presentation. I do want to refer back to our last webinar. We asked, and related to what Jason was talking about with promotions, we asked our audience, how likely is it that you've given a promotion or a discount to someone that would have bought anyway? And 90% of them said, oh, can we bring Jason back on? Because I have another question for him. That 90% of them said that it was likely, and the other 10% were in denial, is my opinion. But there was a question that came in, Jason. They were asking if you integrate with Shopify, if Session AI integrates with Shopify. So I thought,
yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. And we have actually pre-built connectors for Salesforce, Adobe, and others as well. And so, and we're working specifically with Shopify Plus as well.
All right, great. All right, we'll bring you back for the panel we're right after we do our polling questions. So want to get started with the polling questions, and these are just to get a little bit of a sense of where the audience is. So why don't we start with the first one? Let me bring that up. All right, so how disruptive is the deprecation of cookies to your ability to grow in 2024? So this is, how much of a challenge has this cookie deprecation been in challenging your growth? So was it very disruptive, somewhat disruptive, kind of neutral, not very disruptive, or not disruptive at all? So let's see what everyone's saying. I thought that it was going to be less disruptive than what everyone's reporting, because it feels like we've been hearing about cookies going away for such a long time. But it's around almost 80% are saying very disruptive. So it's about 60% somewhat disruptive, and about 20% on very disruptive. And then we have some neutrals and not very disruptive, or not disruptive at all. So, all right. So I think, everyone is still very challenged by cookies going away. And I think we'll have a good conversation about some different thoughts on how to handle that. All right. So why don't we close that one out? We'll do our second and last question. And Jason had that great shot of all the different areas where AI is being applied in retail, and I picked a few of these. But to hear everyone talk about where you think your business, what areas of your business AI has made a material impact so far. You can define material however you like, but something that's significant. So more precisely targeting customers in paid media, reducing customer service costs with things like bots, better understanding customer intent when they visit your site, which we'll be talking about quite a bit, better product or better merchandising decisions, reducing costs of producing content, suggesting products customers want to buy, and helping customers discover new products. And I don't know why I put a question mark at the end of that, but it wasn't intended to be. And the ones that are rising to the top, reducing costs of producing content, it's 17%. Reducing customer service costs is 17%. And more precisely targeting customers in paid media is 20%. Helping customers discover new products is 17%. So it's spread out quite a bit. The better merchandising and buying decisions, that's only a small group. And suggesting products customers want to buy, so I still think there's some blind spots there. That's only 8%. All right, why don't we close that out and bring our panel up? All right. Janie, Julie, Michael, thank you so much for joining. Good to have you back. Jason, why don't we get started with some introductions? So if you could each just tell us your name and your role and your company, so everyone understands who you are. We'll start with you, Janie.
Hi, my name is Janie Yamamoto Johnson. I'm the Senior Director of E-commerce at Forever 21, and I've been there for about 15 years.
Awesome. Julie?
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Evans. I'm Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer here at Omaha Steaks, and I've been with the company for 17 years. I'm going to go a little bit longer, Scott. I hope you don't mind. My first tour with Omaha Steaks started back in 1999, and so back then we were a mail order catalog company, and I was really fortunate to sit in the digital chair. So that was back when AOL was the internet and Google wasn't a thing, and everything we were doing was really innovative, developing email, understanding SEO and SEM, and even at the end of that tour in 2012, we were sending SMS messages. So now reminds me a little bit of that time back then when everything is kind of new and changing and innovative. So I did rejoin Omaha Steaks back in 2019, right before COVID. COVID was great for Omaha Steaks. We were humbled to serve so many customers and delighted they stuck around. So I think just lots of comparisons to back in the early days.
Well, good. I'm glad the industry is bringing more excitement to you again.
Yeah.
Michael.
Hi, guys. Still really wish my name started with J. Jason, Janie, Julie, and Michael. I'm CEO at a company called Houzer. We sell sinks. We also sell some kitchen and bathroom products that aren't sinks. My background, although I'm the CEO now, is very much digital veteran. I spent my 20s growing an online retailer to about $1 billion in sales from a few million. That company was Build.com, now owned by Ferguson. Spent my 30s, the first half of my 30s working on the other side of the fence on the brand side, as a head of what is now basically called omnichannel commerce. That term didn't really exist back then. I would take over Amazon, launch D2C, take over digital marketing, and sort of sit on all of that and then get headhunted into another brand. So I did that for sort of chapter 2 of my career. Now I've started in this CEO chapter where the first thing that I did is launch D2C for us. So you kind of take the guy out of the digital career, but you can't take the digital career out of the guy. We'll talk more about that later.
All right, great. Good to know everyone. So before I get started, I want to kind of cue either Maeve or Alan in the background. If you could maybe put a link into the previous webinar that Jason referenced that he did that talked a lot about getting buy-in and kind of having the boardroom conversation about AI, because I think that would be very relevant to this audience. But kind of along those lines, I want to have each of the panelists describe their journey, their AI journey. It's kind of a 2-part question. And then what is the boardroom expectation for AI at your company? Is it, leading edge, being a fast follower? Is it something else? And so trying to understand kind of where you are on the journey and how's that compare to what the boardroom expectation is. So Julie, why don't we start with you?
All right. So I turned Scott down twice when he asked me to sit on this panel. just feeling like we just aren't far enough along in our journey to really have a lot to offer you. But he assured me that I was representative of the majority. So here I am. I said yes. But I'm finding that we are part of the 97% of companies that are considering using AI from Jason's stat there. So I did come out of a board meeting yesterday, and AI did come up. For us, AI isn't an initiative, but it's something that we are considering to solve our business problems. We are laser focused on just a few big things this year, and AI is a part of solving all of them. How can we use AI to improve the customer experience and drive, top line revenue? And then how can we use AI to extract costs from the business? So, one of the big projects is really bringing our call center current. We still take, a nice amount of orders over the phone, and just giving our agents the tools so they can be really personalized with our customers. And, AI using recommendations, and AI actually taking part of the order before it even gets to the customer or gets to the agent, or maybe taking the full order. So lots of work being done there. And then, as Jason mentioned, as I think about it, we've all been using AI, things like making product recommendations. We just didn't call it AI. So that's really where we're at.
All right, Michael, how about you?
Yeah, and I think the nice thing about, by the way, I'm glad you said yes, Julie, because I think you do summarize the majority of folks. I think that there's a lot of people who think that someone out there has a killer app. I personally don't think we've seen that killer app yet. I mentioned that I have an odd perspective as a digital guy coming into the CEO role. I'm sort of building this framework for investment, right? So we have Houzer as a current existing, fairly legacy brand, 30-year-old business. I've had the unique opportunity here to dictate our tech stack almost from scratch, because the business was very traditional distribution, B2B2C. So I've been thinking a lot about how to build that out from the bottom up, because our ambition is to invest in acquiring other companies. I work for an overseas, like a large global overseas industrial company, and they want to buy more accretive businesses here in the States. So what I'm thinking about is really sort of a sequence to prepare for that killer app. I think Julie's point that AI already existed is a very good one. It's sort of funny how everyone forgets about machine learning and all of the other bells and whistles that have existed for a while. I think the key distinction now would be the ability for AI to generate almost human worthy. And that, I think, is the big departure. But you still have a lot of the traditional machine learning stuff that's out there. So what we're thinking about when we look forward to preparation for AI, and I actually just spoke at a conference about exactly this, is first and foremost making sure that we're accreting all the first-party data that we're going to need to train whatever future LLM or other AI application that we bring in. And that really boils down to, for a lot of brands that may be on this webinar, simply just having D2C, right? If you are competing with a company and they've got D2C, and that means that they've got a contact center talking to those like customers who are buying directly, they've got live chat communicating back and forth and accreting this ream of text data. Guess what? A future killer app LLM can train on all of that data. If you don't have that, then you are essentially without that hoard or lake of data that will come in handy in the future. I think this is the year that those killer apps will come. And so the first piece that I considered for us was simply just having D2C. And then from there, we're looking at 2 or 3 different applications. Obviously, the easiest and most extant today is customer contact, right? Streamlining and simplifying and improving that, especially maybe at odd hours of the day where you might have an overflow outsourced call center. The other big one for us that I'm really currently excited about is long tail SEO and long tail like customer acquisition search, because that's where your efficiency can really come from a customer acquisition scale for any business. If you're going out and competing on a really, generic keyword, you're going to pay a fortune in almost every industry. And if you work in like or beauty or something like that, forget about it. You're paying $100 per click for, lotion. The key is to go out and get after that long tail, and AI is a perfect modern AI, generative AI is a perfect application for that. And then the thing I'm most excited for about in the future is sort of the convergence of all of these things, right? Where right now you have generative AI, you can have ChatGPT or GPT-5 or 4 write your copy. You can also separately go out and use generative AI to create an image. But I think we're very close to a killer app where your whole Google shopping feed, right, your CSC feed, is going to be dynamically generated. It will optimize an image for you. It will test a bunch of variations of that. It'll pull in maybe some text overlays based on your most popular reviews for that product and maybe test a few of those. There's so much data that flows through there. Being able to dynamically do that is going to be really amazing. So I think we'll probably see that maybe toward the end of this year, early next year, and that's really exciting.
All right, and Janie, how about you? Where are you in this journey, and how's that compared to the boardroom expectation?
I think we are really in our use case and testing era at this point. We've identified really key areas, whether it be as part of the business, as part of our workflow, as part of customer acquisition, that we want to go after, and have really tailored our AI expansion around those specific opportunities. I think when we talk about AI as a group, it can be such a nebulous and overwhelming term. It's exactly what personalization was 10 years ago. When we talk about personalization, it's this big umbrella. It's the same thing with AI. So I think it's really easy to get super lost in the weeds and very quickly become overwhelmed by, data paralysis or analysis paralysis. So for us, really identifying where can we optimize, where can we work smarter, where can we do more with less has been our focus for the last 6 months.
So Janie, I just want to follow up question on that. What I'm kind of hearing from you is that you kind of recognized AI as this superpower, and we're looking for like particular areas in the business where you think it could optimize. Is that, would you say that's an accurate interpretation of what you're saying?
Definitely. I think we as a leadership and as a group of teams sat down and said, where do we want to make the business better? Where do we want to put our collective focuses, whether it's marketing or data or business or merchandising, and identifying those focuses and then figuring out, okay, what can help us meet these goals? How can we use AI? How can we use personalization strategies? How can we use first-party data strategies to drive these business goals as a singular road? Has really helped us take AI and break it down into really understandable and digestible KPIs so that we have strong accountability behind what that AI is supposed to do for us versus it just being, hey, we're using AI to do this. So I think that's really helped us create the KPIs that hold AI accountable for what it's supposed to do and how we expect it to work.
And Jason, I want to kind of get your perspective, because I'm hearing on one hand from Janie, it's like, okay, we have this superpower of AI. Let's find some different areas where we can apply it. Julie, you can chime in if I'm not characterizing this right, is like, okay, hey, we have some things we really want to be better at in the business. And if AI happens to overlap with that, then let's dig in and invest there. And Jason, you're probably seeing, I'm kind of curious what you're seeing, the different companies approaching it and what the balance may be. And is it hey, that we have the superpower, where do we put it? Or is it, let's focus on our biggest opportunities and challenges and then see what's going to meet that need? And that's probably, I'm being a bit reductive and having these two opposite approaches, but I'm kind of curious what you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen two different ways of doing it. I think there's some people who are trying to solve it based on the company strategy, and then other people who are just looking at it opportunistically in what's a real use case that works now. And so I think there's two different ways in. And I know even for me on the B2B side, it's been like that too, where there's certain KPIs or certain strategies that we're trying to implement for the year. But then also there's times when kind of a disruptive technology comes out and they come with the playbook on how to do X differently. And so I know for me, for example, in a prior company, we were able to use a machine learning model to identify the companies that would be most apt to buy our product. It was the enterprise SaaS product. And we let it run for 6 months and then saw that it actually actually worked. Essentially, it predicted who would buy and who wouldn't. And so we were then able to essentially cut 25% of our effort on outbound, and then also for the meetings that we would have with people from the companies that just wouldn't convert ever. And it allowed us to improve CAC 33% in a business that was 9 years old. And that was because there was a new technology that could do something for us versus like a use case that we were already thinking about, right? It was like this came along and we said, oh wow, this could really make a difference for us. And so that's how we, how we approach it. I think that's happening in the same way. I think there's a lot of people who are saying like, hey, I got to do something with AI, but I don't know what to do, and I need to like find a real use case. And I think the kind of forward-looking AI vendors are actually building those use cases with the businesses. Like people don't have it all figured out. Like it's still early in this area. So I think the people who are embracing these things are actually innovating with the companies to build real impact. There's like kind of known use cases, but the new use cases are super interesting.
So we had a great question come in from Matt Pritchard, VP of Product Management at Gap. Just curious how brands are feeling about AI intermediating some facets of the customer relationship. There's some obvious trade-offs, and what's acceptable or exciting, and where does it seem too risky? So I don't know, Julie, do you want to take a stab at that of kind of, where, I guess essentially you're letting the machines interface with your customers. Where do you feel is like the when you cross the line of it's too risky because it may get something very wrong, or just affect sales in a negative way?
Yeah, when we think about AI and deploying it that way, we have to think about, who our customers are. They tend to be a little bit older, so we want to be really sensitive to that. But, like I said, one of our initiatives this year is to really upgrade the technology in our customer experience center. And so that would be like, what information can we capture from consumers as they're coming into the site, by asking them questions and having a conversation with them. So that the agent can more quickly process the order. And then on our website, we're actually exploring, not only chat, but chat bots where, they can take all of the data that we've had from, previous conversations and actually have some of those conversations before maybe solve it all or before it gets handed off to, someone to have that chat live.
And Janie or Michael, any thoughts on kind of what you're willing to kind of let go of more?
I would say it's the current best use case for it is the early contact, right? When you're not trying to convert somebody, you're not trying to necessarily get into a lot of real subject matter expertise. I think I would liken it honestly to leveraging an outsourced call center for rollover hours, right? So for example, like maybe a weekend or, after midnight or something like that, where you still want somebody, a warm human voice or simulacrum of a warm human voice to be available for that customer, but you don't necessarily need them to be an expert on your product. Obviously, the more considered the purchase is, the more luxury or high dollar the product is, the more likely it is that that's not going to work out. I also think that's going to change over time. So there's an immediate reaction to things like this that comes from our history and seeing the frankly rather cringy things that the AI of old might have put out. And then there's those of you that have used, which is hopefully everyone who's listening to this, something like a ChatGPT to talk with. It's astonishingly and almost creepily good, right? Like there's an uncanny valley of text with what's coming out. So if you imagine, going back to what I said before, you've had that D2C site, you've got your product knowledgeable chat agents who are trained on all of these thousands of questions your business may be getting. Now you imagine that there's a period of training on that data that your personal brand LLM is going to do. You might be pretty shocked at what's going to come out of that. So I think there's going to be a bit of a leap of faith and obviously a monitored leap of faith, just like if you bring in an outsourced chat agent, you're going to look at what they're actually communicating to the customers. But I think this, like the first leap is just letting it in there for that initial period of a contact and then handing off to a warm agent. But I suspect a lot of brands are rapidly going to find that AI is outperforming at least a new hire that isn't maybe trained on the product, because the LLM can parse a million, rows of chats that customers have had. Your new agent is going to need months to get up to speed on that. And so if you're scaling up or scaling down at a high efficiency rate, my projection would be that. For us, again, I'm expecting to use a tepid toe in the water, see how that goes. I think there's sort of a crawl, walk, run that a lot of folks are thinking about with this. Janie, go ahead.
No, I agree with that. I think the crawl, walk, run, and I'm a firm believer in human in the loop, whether it's with business strategy AI or customer facing AI or efficiency AI, having that human in the loop to really be a moderator and to be a voice of the brand, a voice of the company is incredibly important, right? I mean, when you're talking about, you know, luxury products, there's a limited amount of luxury products. When you're talking about bigger brands who have hundreds of thousands of styles available, and product discovery for a customer is incredibly important. I think that's where, for us, AI can come in incredibly handy. But when we want to have direct interaction with our customer, when we want to get their feedback on what we can do better, I think that's where, you know, I get a little bit more hands-on and would like to see, you know, more of our agents interacting with customers. That makes sense.
I think that's great advice from the panel of human in the loop. You know, it doesn't have to be either or. It doesn't have to be all computer generated. It doesn't have to be all human generated. And that's, you know, and then you would expect that the humans in the loop are probably going to add more value because they're being taxed less. Wow, we have some great questions coming in. And I still want to get like talk about the anonymous customers. So what, like, we have a great question from Jessica, and we'll why don't we circle back to that? But you know, we promoted this and marketed this event as talking about anonymous shoppers, and so I want to spend a little bit of time doing that. And you know, we talked about cookies going away. That's been a big prompt for how you're dealing with anonymous shoppers, or the fact that you have more anonymous shoppers. And I'm kind of curious how that's going so far. We saw in the polling question that it is pretty disruptive still. After, I feel like this has been a narrative for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years that cookies are going away. Yet it's still disruptive. And I don't know, Julie, I feel like I want to hear your perspective because you were there, like in the early days. You've seen kind of when cookies, you know, were fully there, and you've been watching them go away, and kind of interested to hear how you're thinking about it. Like what's been it like? How's it been for Omaha Steaks? Is it, you know, are you like happy with your ability to manage this cookie deprecation?
Yeah, so we're learning like everyone. We have pretty good identification, first party identification of the traffic that's coming to our site. And really the third parties for us are really helpful in our retargeting. And we've done a lot of incrementality testing with all of our retargeting. And while it is incremental, it's not as incremental as you would think. And additionally, the third party cookies allow competition to target shoppers that are in market for steaks and gourmet food. And because we are the guerrilla brand out there, you know, not having them could be a win for us.
And anything you've done to boost for like the collection of first party data? I mean, I know there's loyalty programs. Is there like, I'm assuming that's worked for you, but anything, you know, or has that worked for you, and anything else?
Yep, I had that on my list is our loyalty program. We have really good participation in our loyalty program because it's a replenishable product. And then we also are moving to a subscription model where we're getting more and more customers to subscribe. And so that requires, you know, the logins. And then we also believe that it needs to be super easy to log in. And so we haven't done it, but we are considering that two-step authentication when someone wants to log in, so that, you know, they don't have to remember passwords. They just, you know, need to go to their phone and get their verification.
And Michael, you're a newer brand, so maybe you were, you know, you were kind of in a pretty big growth mode when cookies weren't as prevalent as, say, what it was happening at you know, an older brand like Omaha Steaks. But, you know, how have you been? Like, how big of an issue is it for you? And what do you do?
It's still a concern. I mean, if you're paying to acquire traffic, then anonymous users are an issue, right? And I mean, unless I don't think there's probably anyone on the call that's not paying money to buy clicks, to buy eyeballs. So it's a big concern. I have a unique perspective on this to some degree because I also worked briefly at Wonderkind, who used to be BounceX. Like their whole shtick was identifying anonymous users and sending targeted emails to them. And so I got to my only real time in tech had always been retail or brand. But I got to look under the hood of how that worked, and that was during the death of the cookie, essentially. And thank God people have stopped calling it the death of the cookie, because I think we were all tired of hearing about it. But that was during that period. And so for us, we are looking at a couple of targeted tech solutions that will allow us to go after those people, both from a email triggered messaging standpoint, follow up with abandoned cart, abandoned browse, things like that. And then also the goal would be more of a holistic full funnel, facing those people with retargeting ads and things like that, cross device. I think everyone should be thinking about it, because the reality is, even forgetting the death of the cookie, like imagine the cookie was still there, you're still going to have cross device, people browsing on their phone and buying on their laptop, or browsing on their laptop and buying on their phone. Even I think is more common these days. Even if you're cookied, it's still not going to do you any good. You have to realize that your customers shop just like you do. They've all got a lot of things. I mean, you can probably even shop on your Apple Watch, right? So we're thinking about it because we're buying traffic. And if you are a company that's buying traffic and you don't know who your customers are after they leave the site, which most of them are going to do, unless you're selling something that's incredibly easy to buy and purchase and isn't has a zero consideration cycle, you should be investing in a solution like that. I think it's well worth it. And Scott, I did call that you were going to have the crowd way more interested in AI than anonymous shopping, right? So everyone wants to know about that.
Yes, absolutely right. And anything, Janie, anything you want to add to that?
No, I know. I think, for us, it's with the cost of marketing, the cost per click going up. It's really important to take the users that we do have on the site, in our app, through mobile web, everything, and give them the best experience possible. So how are we using AI to enhance their journey? How are we using AI to speak more personally to them? I think that's kind of really where we're looking to focus our efforts and energies on our customers, and really making sure that they have the best experience possible and are discovering all of the amazing product that Forever 21 has.
So, I mean, kind of the North Star of a digital customer experience is one that comes closest to the in-store experience, where they are interacting with an associate. The associate can get a sense of their state of mind, if they're in a hurry or if they're browsing, if they're willing to engage more, maybe they want to be guided. Janie, do you feel like you're like making some good progress on closing that gap between the store and the digital experiences?
I feel like we are. We try to align our marketing as much as possible, our content, and really making sure, kind of, whether you're shopping on the app, on the site, or in the store, you have a really unified Forever 21 brand experience. That's a really important focus for us. And then, really being able to take the customer's experience in store and bringing that to the web, and vice versa. So, talking about first party data and really trying to identify those customers, and being able to say, hey, you bought this in store, and here's 5 other things that go amazing with that, or here's how to outfit that new incredible top you just bought. That's what we're really looking into.
Jason, anything you want to add on this, like, idea of kind of bridging the gap between like the digital and the store experience? And I mean, you're very bullish on, I think, the ability of AI to like understand these, hidden signals that customers are giving, that allows a retailer or a brand to bridge that gap. And I don't know if you want to predict on, how far we can go and by when. Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I think I think there's just all these new abilities around behavior to like actually understand what people are doing in the moment and then taking action. I mean, there's been so much work around personalization. I kind of mentioned this earlier, that to show people the right products, or the right get them to the right categories, or promote the right products back in email or retargeting. But this ability to actually do things in real time, that is just, there's the tactics and the technologies just have not been there yet. And so that's a whole new world of getting us closer to a real store experience, or a real kind of reflexive response, I would say, to what people are doing, as opposed to it just being a very static experience. And I know everyone's trying to do that, but it's just really hard, right? The complexity of all the behavior and then all of the product mix, it's hard to connect the dots there. And so you actually need an AI to deal with the complexity. And it becomes a machine problem, not a person problem, right? It goes from a rules-based engine to real AI. And so as kind of the background technologies are getting better, people will figure out ways to drive real impact. And really when it comes down to it, it's like we're all trying to drive these goals, and that's how we're all measured. And so the closer you can get the technology to getting to those goals and creating a good experience for the customer, like that's key. And so I think what you're seeing is there's been lots of technologies that have been kind of downstream, and now it's getting closer and closer and closer to that direct purchase path.
All right, we have about 4 minutes left, and I do want to go back to what we were talking about a little bit in the beginning of what your AI strategy and plans are overall. The question is from Jessica Coster, VP of e-commerce at Purchasing Power, and she's saying, since we're all early in AI, see, Julie, we're all early in AI. How are you managing the board's / owner's expectation of this new promised land versus the reality of implementing in the business? So, I mean, Julie, I'll start with you. I mean, first of all, do you agree with the premise of the question that do you think, I mean, you just came out of a board meeting. I mean, do they have high expectations and that it's, this new promised land? And do you feel like you have to manage that?
I think they have high expectations for everything. So including AI. Like I said, we're zooming in on what our business problems are. And then, they expect us to be using, everything we possibly can to solve those business problems, including AI, and AI can step in, and impact a lot of them. It's not the answer to everything, but it can have an impact on the entire strategy.
Michael?
I think it's really a great deal of education. And I think that's, 90% of board management is being an educator without making people feel like you're talking down to them. The company before this, I was working for a billionaire beef, cattle rancher guy who decided to start an e-commerce company. The key that I found in terms of that is trying to judo flip hey, I saw this Wall Street Journal article on ChatGPT, and it seems like you can just lay off 2/3 of your workforce now because AI can just do all of that job for them, into, hey, why don't you go install the app? Let me install it on your phone for you. Let me show you how you can use it to do simple things like, build a grocery list and create a Instacart order that you can click and go into Instacart and order. Get the board members using it. To get them more cognizant of what it can and can't do, what it can do well and what it can't do well. I've given that advice to a few people who are struggling with that type of board pressure. Our board's a little unique because, again, global company, Israeli owned, so they're not quite as fixated on this. They have bigger problems closer to home. But with a couple of them, they're still somewhat engaged in business. I've been doing that. And frankly, it's been productive. Like, there's support for investment into these tools. The key, I think, is, at least from my perspective, getting your own people, and so I'm switching this from managing up to the board level, more about your own employees. Get your people using it, help them to see it as a tool that can help them do their job more efficiently, more productively, more effectively. To dispel fears of, hey, I'm a designer, am I going to still have a job in a year? Because now Photoshop has these amazing Firefly suite for producing images. So I think that goes both ways, both getting your board members to use it and getting your team to use it. And since board members, frankly, don't do a whole lot of work anyway, you get a little more value in your business out of teaching your people how to use these tools. And if you're not using them yourself, it's usually where I start this, is go get ChatGPT, go try out generative AI for text, generative AI for images, play around with it, install Studio LM and install a local LLM yourself on your laptop so that you can train an AI on your own data. There's a lot of things you can do to play with it that can then lead to getting your employees, your board members, whoever using it.
Great. Well, Jason, I'm going to leave the final word with you, and it'd be interesting to hear your perspective on this question around managing board expectations, because you're working with so many different companies that are, approaching this in a variety of different ways. Any couple of tips you have on how to do this to wrap things up?
Yeah, I mean, I think on some of the generative side, there are things that capture people's imagination. Like it's just like so interesting creatively. So there's that kind of bucket, and then there's the bucket of systems that are like driving impact today, and how like not just efficiency, but like business impact. So I think putting those in different buckets and then helping people understand the impact in the business and how AI fits into the actual workflows of the work, so that people can have good expectations on what's real and what's not. I think right now that's the crux of the discussion, is what you can really get out of the technology versus what people's kind of science fiction expectations are. Let's say that.
Great, thank you. Well, thanks again, Jason, for being with us again. Julie, Michael, Janie, thank you so much for joining and sharing your thoughts and helping our community learn from this, from your insights and your experiences to apply it to their business. So I hope to see all of you in our audience as well, June 11th through the 13th in New York for the big Commerce Next Growth Show. We will be back for another webinar in late June, and June 26th. So we're taking a little bit of time off to focus on our big event. But until then, we look forward to seeing you, and have a great rest of your day.